Hey, what's up, guys? Maybe doing the show solo today, may not. We'll see what comes. Got some irons in the fire, as they like to say. We'll go on from there. But there's a few topics I wanted to go over this evening, real shortly with everyone. The first one is going to be obviously the one that's on everyone's mind, the one that's honestly the biggest event that's happened in American politics in the last 10 years easily, and that's going to be the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the Republican reaction to it. Because it's an analogy that's been used many times over and over again throughout the last couple of years, is that this is a situation in which the dog has caught the car. The Republicans have been angling to destroy the rights for abortion for 50 years now. And I mean, if you guys have been around this whole time, you'll know that the rhetoric has been pretty consistent the entire time. They'll be saying stuff such like, life begins at conception and that abortion is murder. And they've been crusading against it, not just my entire adult lifetime, but my entire lifetime period. And honestly, I didn't think that they would actually overturn it. I really didn't. I would make fun of Republicans for voting for politicians to overturn Roe v. Wade, because I always figured two things. I always thought, one, that they would rather have the carrots dangling in front of you. It's like, vote for us and then we will go after Roe v. Wade. It's a good way to fundraise. It's a good way to galvanize your base. It's a good way to, shore up support, especially when times are rough. You can demonize the Democrats and how they're murdering babies left and right. It was perfect. And also, the one we're seeing today is that I thought they were too smart to actually overturn Roe v. Wade, because, well, now that you've overturned Roe v. Wade, you realize that, this is actually an incredibly popular measure by the thoughts of the American people. No one wants to live in a pre-Roe v. Wade society, and the Republicans have been paying for it ever since then. Ever since Roe v. Wade's been overturned, the Republicans have been getting waxed over and over and over again, and they refuse to learn their lesson. Like, most of them, at least. There are some who are, kind of sounding the alarm bell, like, hey, folks, we really need to modernize on this. But that's not going to work. In fact, it honestly can't work, because if you have convinced the majority of your voting population that abortion is murder, like, it's no different than if you walked up and murdered someone in the street, how are you then going to say, well, we need to, moderate this, and we need to fight for something like a 12-week abortion ban, when like 90% of pregnancies or 90% of abortions take place within the first trimester? So essentially you're saying abortion is murder is wrong. I'm okay with 90% of murders. That's the message you're putting out, and that doesn't make any sense to anyone. So it's not going to work at all. So it's been really fun watching the Republicans scramble, trying to find a way to, square this circle, and the fact that they support all of these extreme measures, but they know that supporting them will lose them elections across the country. So Sean Hannity, who I've been listening to Sean Hannity for years. I started listening to Sean Hannity, probably in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. He would come on the radio after Rush Limbaugh. I was a Rush baby. I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh every day. And Sean Hannity has put forward his idea of what can happen to save Donald Trump and the Republicans. And his suggestion is the Democrats should do it for him. Check it out.
Arizona.
I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. I can't. Hold on. Technical difficulties here. Bizarre. Oh, no. Let's try it this way. Still nothing. Wow.
Trump that doesn't exist.
Oh, there we go. All right, we'll try that again, like I'm not some sort of rank fucking amateur here. Only one person watches, so it'll be good. So the Republicans have found themselves in a pretty difficult situation with this abortion thing. They realize that the position that they've been advocating for 50 years is incredibly unpopular with the American people, and it's causing them to lose elections left and right. And even when they tried to resort to the false reality of, oh, we're not actually against abortion, we just want to return to the states. Well, that's come back to bite them in the ass too, because some states can implement draconian abortion measures. Like that's the bed that you made. And that's exactly what Arizona did when they reverted back to an abortion law from 1864, from before the Civil War was over. In fact, this isn't even an Arizona state law. This is an Arizona territory law. This barbaric legislation predates the actual state of Arizona. And Republicans have been trying to blame people left and right for this because they can't blame themselves. They never learned their lesson. And one funny part that I've seen is asking the Democrats for help. Like the Democrats should come in and save us. And that's exactly what Sean Hannity suggested the other day. I'll go ahead and play the clip for you.
Arizona's governor is a Democrat. The state's attorney general is a Democrat. The state legislature is almost evenly divided. If Democrats, you want to get rid of the law, well, you have a chance right now to get rid of it. And I would advise you, get rid of it. They would rather use it as a political tool ahead of November. Most politicians on the left do not actually care about making your life better. The people on the left are.
All right. So what Sean Hannity is saying is that, listen, yeah, we have that draconian abortion measure in Arizona, and maybe we do look bad, but hey, why don't the Democrats do something about this? Why don't they clean up our mess? Like that's Hannity's whole prescription here, that they made this giant mess with like outlawing all abortion, realized it was incredibly unpopular, and they want the Democrats to throw them a lifeline. So Hannity's suggestion is that so sure, the Arizona Supreme Court is entirely Republican, but the Arizona governor, the Arizona attorney general are both Democrats. By the way, like, why is that? He says that as if it's a good thing. Wouldn't he want them to be Republicans? That's kind of interesting. And the Arizona House, at least, is split. I believe it's split like 31-29, 31 Republicans, 29 Democrats. So he's saying, listen, it's a pretty evenly divided House. The Democrats should come in and save the day and overturn this ridiculous ruling. And what's interesting about that is that they did try. They tried immediately after this ruling came down last week, and they tried it again earlier today. And you'll never guess what happened. Let's see here. Yeah, Arizona House once again blocks the 1864 abortion ban. The Senate leaves the door open. So the Arizona Senate took a concrete step towards repealing the state's pre-Roe abortion ban on Wednesday, but the House Republicans continued to block similar efforts, leaving the fate of the 1864 law in question. Rates with them, 30-30. Blah, driving this one. Where does it say here? The ban was from 1864. And, here we go. 30-30 in the House and 16-14 in the Senate. They illustrate the tensions that have resurfaced over the issue since the Arizona Supreme Court reinstated the pre-Roe ban last week. In total, 3 whole Republicans in competitive districts joined Democrats to support the repeal. Attention now turns back to the House, where a Republican speaker has vowed to continue to stymie the effort. The soonest the Senate could take a final vote on this bill is in 2 weeks. Where's the series here? Yeah, so, in 2 weeks, to give the bill final approval, because both chambers are meeting only once a week. The House Speaker, Ben Toma, tells Axios he'll continue to block his chamber from voting on the bill if the Senate passes it, just as he and most Republicans have now done twice. Quite frankly, I don't know how it's different, he says. The only way to force a vote would be to override the Speaker, which most Republicans have been hesitant to do. So here's what's going on. Hold on, I got a voidcast here. I don't see them. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I didn't see you. I'm sorry, man.
I've been sitting here for like 20 minutes screaming.
Oh my God. You know what the problem was? So I'm so sorry. So he's stumbling around there for the entire time. So I've been having issues playing. Have you used StreamYard before?
Not much now.
Yeah, so we started using it about a month ago and just trying to figure out how to use it and everything. And I try to play videos on here. It took a while to figure out how to get that down. But the issue I'm having is whenever I click to share the video file like from the computer, it will automatically start playing just like that. I don't want it to do that. I wanted to click play for it to play. So I figured out a way to do it was to like preload it in the backstage, and that way I could just do that. But I didn't realize it would block out the guests coming in. So we got Rory from the Voidcast, who's been sitting here for 20 minutes the entire time. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, man. I was like texting you on everything. You're gonna open up your email and see all the messages that I was sending you.
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
it's all good.
So it's good stuff. So, I mean, you heard what I was saying and everything. Anything? What are your thoughts here on the Republicans and the abortion thing? Because I got to say, yeah, the fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned has been catastrophic to the nation. It's awful. It showed the indelible stamp of the Republicans' barbaric nature, that we all knew already. And it has done a lot to galvanize support for Democrats from people who otherwise wouldn't have. But what are your thoughts on it overall? Like, what do you think is going on here?
I think the biggest thing with the recent developments is it's really starting to highlight the division between like true ideologues and the people looking for political clout. Because just from the article that I was reading about it, there's the one Republican in the House, which is basically divided right down the middle, that is basically saying, hey guys, this is basically political suicide. And all the other Republicans are like, no, we need to enshrine this. This is our principle. We need to save baby lives.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been the biggest thing for me, is like just watching this big schism in the Republican Party. Like even Handy going back and being like, guys, we're going way too fucking far with this one.
Yeah, it's a real separate the sheep from the goats type of moment here.
Exactly.
Like, it's really showing who actually believes this and who is doing it for political clout.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out, like, no big surprise that a lot of the people in Republican media don't actually believe it. Like, they want Republicans to get elected, like guys like Sean Hannity and everything. And it's funny to see, like, I saw some other folks talking on, right-wing media. Who'd I see? I saw Charlie Kirk, who was saying, who was going the political route, saying, listen, we got to come to terms with the fact that America is not ready for we need to get them more properly educated on this, which was so absurd, because you guys have had 5 fucking decades to do this. You guys have had 50 years to go over exactly why you think abortion should be illegal. Like from the moment of conception. Like, how often do they tell us that life begins at conception? They say it all the time. And fewer people believe it. So like, a few more years are not going to change anyone's mind. And then there's people like, I think Matt Walsh, I saw, who said that, listen, this is the right decision. Like, I understand it's not politically popular, but so it's like, all right, Matt Walsh really believes this. Like, he understands that his position is unpopular. I think he understands, although it's easier for Matt Walsh because he's made an entire platform on like I'm going to say unpopular shit and revel in it. And Charlie Kirk's done that similar too, but he's actually amazingly that Charlie Kirk is a get out the vote individual who just really sucks at it. But
no, Matt Walsh is like, I'm going to look at reality and then just say the opposite.
Just
as hard as he can. And every single time he says something completely unpopular, he just doubles down. He's just a double down conservative.
He is. And it's weird. It's weird to think about it, because so is Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk hasn't always been like this. He hasn't always. He made some sort of turn 2 or 3 years ago. And I saw this clip. I was going to do a video on it. I just got lazy and never did. But it was a clip that Charlie Kirk did an event for, I think it was for Turning Point USA. And he was on stage with a black gay Republican. And he was saying that, hey, listen, we need to reach out to other groups of people. We need to become more inclusive, meaning more big tent, because this is a population that could vote for us. And they're people with whom we share a lot of our values. And a guy, then they had the open mic question part. And a guy came up, he's like, I want to know what butt sex has to do with the Republican Party. Like, that's the question he asked. It's like, bro, what? It's like, that's what he said. He didn't even say sodomy. Like, I think he actually said like butt sex or something like that.
Yeah.
And he said that I think that, what's the point of having this movement if we're not protecting our Christian values? And Charlie Kirk was like arguing with the guy and telling him, listen, we can't afford to lose all these voters. And the crowd was not having it. And he actually, like, I don't want to give him too much credit or something like that, but he was making an attempt to kind of reach out to other groups. And he never started his, like, he was always talking about how Martin Luther King was a Republican, like they like to say. But over the last 2 or 3 years, he's abandoned that entirely. Just abandoned it entirely. It's like, yeah, I'm going to just dive right into the racism shit. So it is funny seeing, I think that the abortion thing is like as bad as the rest of that shit is. Like, you can still be pretty racist in America and get away with it. But man, you start saying no one can ever have an abortion, you're going to get destroyed. Like even in conservative states. And I think he notices that.
Yeah. And as far as like this specific instance goes, in my mind, it's just completely ridiculous. The fact that the state Supreme Court would even uphold this law existed when Arizona was still a territory. Like, it wasn't even actually a part of the United States before they even had a state constitution. But they're going to go back to this outdated law and say, oh, this actually still applies. Abortion is effectively banned. Basically, how Roe v. Wade protected abortion, it had like the opposite swing.
Yeah.
It was basically the state Supreme Court saying, actually, this law says abortion's banned. And now the Senate is siding with, we need to get rid of this fucking law. And the House is basically divided right down the middle, can't make up its mind. They're trying to delay the process as much as possible so that the Supreme Court's ruling takes effect. And there's effectively nothing Democrats can do outside of trying to pass a bill, which they're deadlocking.
Yeah. And the Republicans are in an interesting situation here because they know. Like, I don't know the members of the Arizona State Assembly. Like, I assume that they're part of the same reasonably intelligent mammalian species that I am. Like, that's my guess right here. And so they can look at math and look at voting trends and say, like, Donald Trump is sprinting away from this decision. Carrie Lake is like, who has a hilarious commercial, if you've seen that, talking about how she thinks this is a bad idea, which none of them should be saying because they all believe life begins at conception. It's murder. But they all realize that this is politically toxic. And John and I talked about last week how Arizona is still like in the light swing state category. Not anymore. Like, not anymore. I mean, after this, Arizona is going to be ocean blue. Like, there is no shot the Republicans are winning anything in Arizona. I mean, and honestly, they could have had a scenario in which, I don't know, maybe Trump wins Arizona, but they get like Carrie Lake still wins, or Trump loses, but Carrie Lake still gets the Senate, or just the House votes. Now it's destroyed. Like, all Republicans, but top to bottom, they're going to be destroyed by this because everyone knows the Republican Party is the anti-abortion party. But so they know this. And they realize where the people are, and still, there's a significant portion of Republicans who are like, nope, we're sticking with it. We're going to be a national and international embarrassment and everything. And my only thought to this is, A, they are more true believers than I thought, or B, or B, they're worried about their voting base. Because if they come out and say, actually, we're going to overturn, then they might lose votes. I don't know. Like, which one do you think it leans to more?
I think as far as like elected people, like the politicians themselves, they're really trying to wing it on a niche audience, which is boomers, white, probably more affluent boomers. I think that it's almost like the cult is consuming itself, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, they're deluding themselves into thinking, oh, we might be hearing from our own party how destructive this is, but that's just because they're not true believers. It's basically the ideology consuming itself, the snake eating its own tail, so to speak.
Yeah, the Republican Party, it shouldn't be an elephant. It should be an Ouroboros. It should be a snake eating its own tail. I think we need to put in some sort of request for that. But this is I've noticed a slow evolution of this since the 1990s, and it didn't really I didn't catch on that this is what was happening until 2012, because before you had the old style Republican Party, you had your more Mitt Romney style Republicans, your John McCain's, people like that. that was the stand. Even Ronald Reagan, honestly, even Ronald Reagan would fit into that category, amazingly enough. And both the Bushes, but they catered to the far right, specifically the evangelical right, starting with their marriage with Jerry Falwell and everything, and the moral majority, and started pushing these niche cultural issues that they really didn't give a fuck about. Like, how much do you think George Bush Sr. cared about abortion? Like, you really think he was like sweating bullets about oh my God, there's some 19-year-old there getting abortion? No, he didn't care about that. But the rubes that supported him actually did. And it was only a matter of time before these people became politically active themselves. And actually, no, it wasn't Sarah Palin when I noticed this. I noticed this with Scott Walker, Mike Huckabee, and Rick Santorum. Those were the guys that I remember first coming big to the scene. It's like, oh, wow, they got a couple of the crazies actually with power now. And this kept growing and growing. And Sarah Palin, I guess, was the culmination of it back when John McCain was in one of the dumbest moves.
And you're referring to the 2012 primary, like the Republican primary. That was the primary that I actually started to get politically involved. So I remember that one quite fondly. It just a never-ending shit show. Was that the one with Carly Fiorina in it as well, or was
no? Oh, I don't know, because maybe I don't, because she was in 2016 as well. Because I remember Trump. I remember Cruz chose her as his running mate. Mm-hmm. I remember that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember it fondly, and from that point, and funny enough, the starting point that you started seeing a strong decline towards the right. As far as the Overton window, I've seen that as well. And I, what am I trying to say here? It's being a young person watching it, you think, oh, is this just like, this is my introduction to it, so maybe every young person feels this way. But then you have people twice my age, 3 times my age saying like, no, there's been a noticeable change. Things are becoming much more extreme. And they're not becoming extreme in a populist way. They're becoming extreme in a conservative, authoritarian way. Even people that front as being libertarian or free-minded, free market people are still essentially right-wing authoritarians. And you've just seen this go further and further in their direction, whether it be Fox News, whether it be these elected politicians pushing for abortion bans, even though it's political suicide. It's just becoming worse and worse and worse. And there's nothing to really like repel that. There's no real left criticism. It's just this bickering between neoliberal parties.
What do you with the abortion thing?
Well, I'm speaking really broadly here, but yeah, I think the abortion thing is one of the issues that synthesizes that reality that is just becoming more and more extreme at the expense of the base.
I want to get to the libertarian thing. I want to talk about that. That has been a fascinating thing to watch over the years. I can't wait to get to that. But I remember it really taking off around. We both saw the same thing around that time, and because you had guys like, Rick Santorum, I think, who said he wanted to make being homosexual illegal. You had, Mike Huckabee, thumping his Bible everywhere he went. And Sarah Palin, what we'll get to, is when it really hit the fan, where Sarah Palin, I remember a lot of people making fun of Sarah Palin back in 2008?
Sarah Palin, yeah.
2008. Yeah, and so I remember a lot of people making fun of Sarah Palin for being unintelligent or something, which I don't think is completely fair to just say, oh, listen to how she sounds. She sounds so, because like they would do stuff. I remember she sat down for an interview with Dan Rather, and Dan Rather's like, so tell me, what books are you reading these days? And I was like, I hate that fucking shit. I hate that snobbish, pretentious shit, because I don't read books recreationally. I don't do it. I'm not in school anymore. I'm not reading any books. And so the fact that you don't happen to be reading a book right now doesn't mean that you're an idiot. He also did a question. He's like, what do you think of the Bush Doctrine? And I was like, the what? And then, of course, Sarah Palin thought the same thing. She said, you mean his worldview? And then I remember the rest of the year, he was like, she doesn't know what the Bush Doctrine is. Nobody did. It wasn't an established thing. Dan Rather just came up with it on the spot. But she was dumb. Turns out she was.
Yeah.
Turns out she actually was. But I remember seeing, there's a clip I found from Al Jazeera. I play it a lot, where it shows a Sarah Palin rally in Ohio. And there's all these voters talking about how, yeah, I'm kind of terrified of Obama because I think he might be a terrorist. I think he might be a Muslim terrorist. It's like, really? Like, you think this guy who's been in American politics for decades now is a terrorist? Like, that's what it's like, no, he's black. That's what your problem is. Like, that's your main issue. Yeah. And it's gotten so much worse since then. Well, actually, it hasn't gotten worse as in like the actual ideology. It's just more and more people in the Republican Party are buying into it. And I don't know about you, but it's very sad, because I remember seeing people I knew, I grew up with, who I loved, who were kind and reasonable, are just rabid QAnon folks now. And it's heartbreaking. I don't know if you've noticed that over the years.
Yeah, that's basically what I was saying a minute ago in my endless word salad. There was, I've just seen that very same slippery slope into craziness, and it's the base of people, and at this point, it's becoming just the mainstream right wing, and it's a scary thing to see.
It is. It's why I get so frustrated whenever I see Joe Biden or anybody say that we have got to put a stop to the extreme MAGA Republicans. We need, or Nancy Pelosi saying something like, we need to go back to the Republican parties of the old days. Now, listen, the Republican Party has always been crazy. They're just more vocal about it. Like, this group is like, yeah, granted, it's like, it's like that. Do you remember that meme from a few months back where that lady was on the airplane and she was saying, I don't give two fucks. You guys can all stay here and die if you want, but that man back there is not real. Do you remember that, when that lady was yelling that on the airplane?
I think so.
It was a meme for a long time. Yeah. And people were like, oh my God, what did she see? Did she see an alien or a shapeshifter and everything? And honestly, she was probably just drunk or high or whatever. But because she looked like a normal person, like she was wearing nice clothes, like she looked like she had at least a little bit of money, her hair was done well, and she wasn't hideous and stuff. Like, oh, that's a normal person. Like, maybe they're onto something. And so now you have normal ass people, at least who appear to be normal people, and they're saying stuff like, Democrats want to have a woman have a child and execute the baby. It's like, oh, we need to take this person seriously. No, you don't. No, you don't. You can just like call that person the crazy that they are.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to the libertarian thing while we're here, because it was great, because that has been eye-opening is the wrong word, but it's been like a confirmation of my suspicions. I'll put it that way, because libertarians get, I don't know, like 40% of the issues right on accident, where they're saying that libertarians say stuff like, well, we should legalize drugs to stop the drug war. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Or, hey, maybe we could dial back the amount of foreign wars that we start and or support or encourage. Like, okay, you're right about that. And then they'll be like, yeah, we should get rid of the Civil Rights Act. Okay, no. Okay, you guys you run off the rails there. But they've always pretended that they didn't really care about the social issues. They're like they're libertarians. Like, let people do what they want to do. I mean, that's in our name. We're libertarians. But we just want to make sure that, the economy is strong. That's what their whole pitch always was, until Trump came along. Because when Trump came along, all of a sudden, pretty much every libertarian I know was a huge Trump fan. And they were saying stuff that you wouldn't expect a libertarian to say, like, man, we really got to control that border. We need to get the federal government involved in controlling this border here.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are really cool with this abortion thing, too. Yeah, let take away people's right to have an abortion. And so I don't want to say I'm disappointed with libertarians, but I'm infuriated with them, because if you're going to be, the whole point of being a libertarian, honestly, is just to be an asshole. Like that's what you're an asshole. You don't care who knows it. Just stick with it. Just stick with the being an asshole thing. Like, don't become a Nazi, which is what a lot of libertarians are headed towards.
Well, I'll tell you the secret. There is no such thing as a right-wing libertarian.
Ooh.
Those terms are contradictory. I mean, to be right wing, to conserve, is to use state power or corporate power to enact tradition. That's essentially the core of most conservatism. Libertarianism was originally a leftist alternative to liberalism.
True.
It's essentially anarchy. Anarchy is a left-wing and a Marxist ideology. So for these right-wingers to call themselves libertarians is nothing but shower curtains on a pig. That's essentially what it is. They're economic feudalists. They're capitalist feudalists.
Yes.
And even the ones that are honest that call themselves anarcho-capitalists are just essentially fascists. They want private markets to dictate public policy, and they don't want as they put it, a monopolistic force, i.e. the government. They don't want a monopoly of violence. They want violence to be distributed in the open market, so that you essentially have these private mercenary groups that respond to private courts that are controlled by the wealthiest corporate owners. We're literally describing what's the fuck that video game called? I'm blanking on the name of the video game right now. It's based in the future, and it's basically like a complete dystopia hellscape.
Fallout or something? Or?
No. It's it'll come to me in like 20 minutes when the conversations change.
But it's so true though. So I always say that, look, libertarianism, like, it does make sense if you stop and think about the world's problems for 5 minutes, but not 1 second longer. Because if you do, you realize, okay, all right, this is going to collapse on itself immediately. Yeah. And like, feudalism is the only outcome of libertarianism. It's the only outcome. And they all think, man, if I just wasn't constrained by the federal government, I could just oh wait, I gotta get this shit down right. TVC archive channel with web. I don't know what that means.
that was me.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. Wait.
I accidentally used my backup account and then signed into my current account.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? Oh yeah, everyone thinks, all these libertarians think, man, if I could just, get Uncle Sam off my back and they would unleash the power of the free market, I could be the next Jeff Bezos. No, you won't. You won't. You will be a slave. You will be a slave to one of the world's 4 trillionaires like the rest of us. That is what's going to happen. And I love this idea that they're against the idea of the state or not even the state, of something having a monopoly of violence. Like they're categorically against that, because, like, well, what's your solution here? Like, how are you going to solve this problem? Like, I own this house. This house is mine. I have a deed to this house. The fact that the state recognizes this deed and that they're the ultimate authority on this is the only reason I can say I own this house. That's it. That's the only reason I say it. Because if there were no court system or legal system to define this, it's exactly what you would say. The only reason I own the house is because I have the guns to make sure that I own this house, which makes it incredibly funny that they always love oh yeah, I got to pay my taxes, otherwise men with guns will show up. Buddy, men with guns is going to be the final answer every time. I hate to tell you that. Like, that's how it's going to be. So that's how the world works. And so it's either going to be the men with guns are going to be controlled in a democratic system by all of us, or the men with guns are going to be tiny little fiefdom with warring states until the end of time. And I know which one sounds more appealing to me. I don't know about you.
Well, you already know my answer. I'm a socialist. But
yeah, right. So yeah, it's got to have one way or the other. So, but libertarians, libertarians are always kind of racist. I've always known that. And I before I even knew a whole lot about libertarians, and it only came down to the fact, you don't see many black libertarians. You don't. And then I figured out over time, when I found out more and more about the philosophy, is that you also don't see a lot of female libertarians. You don't see a lot of disabled libertarians.
Well, you notice a strong intersection with, like, incel communities too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's insecurity.
Yeah. You don't see a lot of libertarians that get laid. That's true. That's true. You don't see that a lot. But I noticed a strong correlation in the fact that anyone who lives with, like, even the hint of precarity in their lives and knowing, like, what it is to be disenfranchised, instantly recognizes, oh my God, if we lived in this, every man for themselves society, I'm going to get fucked worse than I am now. And so that's why libertarians tend to be either rich old guys or young white men like that, like rich old guys who literally are powerful, and young white men who, they feel invincible. Like every young person feels invincible. You're a young white man, you're a lot more likely to feel that way.
Yeah, I knew a guy back in the South that when I used to live there, and first time actually talking with him and his buddy about politics, I made some kind of like comment about the corporate the business that we were working for. I made some comment about, oh yeah, it'd be really nice to get some democracy in that thing or something. It's been too many years for me to know the exact conversation, but his rebuttal was essentially like, oh, and you think what's the old saying? They basically want to give the inmates rule. As
inmates running the asylum?
Exactly, the inmates running the asylum is basically the comment that he made, and it's like you're a server at a restaurant. Why are you defending the corporate structure? You're literally comparing yourself to an insane person at an asylum. You don't think that you deserve more of an equal voice in that workplace? It's simp logic, but then they're the first ones to throw simp out as an insult.
It is.
It's ironic.
It is very ironic how they don't realize what's going on here, and it's just that there's also this is why libertarians get along, because look, on the surface, libertarians agree with leftists on a good portion, like not most, but on a solid portion. Maybe conservatives a little more, but they always side with conservatives. Always. Given the option, they will always side. And so, why aren't you guys talking about our Lord and Savior? We are getting there. We just give us time. We will get to JC as soon as we possibly can. But they will always side with conservatives because more than anything, it's kind of what you mentioned. Because like you say, hey, listen, this may not work on libertarian, but for most people, you would say democracy is a good thing. Like everyone getting their voice in what happens in a system that affects them makes a lot of sense. But libertarians would be a little shaky on that. Like, I don't know, because in their mind and in the mind of a lot of conservatives have always, this is not new. They just say it a lot louder now, is that they don't like democracy. They think democracy is bad because why should someone who has wealth or someone who has a position of power or privilege, why should I have an equal say with some homeless guy? Or what has he done? Like I am his better. So I should have more power in this, and consequently, Elon Musk is my better. If he wants to do something that will possibly destroy an economy, he has the right to do so because he's earned that power. It's a very like hierarchical system that they love, and it goes back honestly to the founding of like modern conservatism with Edmund Burke. Ever since the French Revolution, you had Edmund Burke saying, "Look, the monarchy is good. This whole idea that like the prince or the duke is just as important as a factory worker is insanity. The prince and the duke, they've been chosen by God, or they have the right blood or whatever. Exactly. They're the ones who should be running the show. We shouldn't be giving power to the people." And that's what conservatives actually think, and they say it all the time.
Yeah, no, they look at wealth like it's a determinator of how well you're doing in life. When your wealth and the amount of money you have is based on dozens of different factors, the majority of which we can't even directly control. A lot of it is systematic. It's where you are in life and where you started. You're only going to get so far if you have a small amount of capital to start with. If you start off poor, you are more than likely going to end poor. It doesn't matter how hard you work. Even like boomers that come back and say, like, my generation is one of the laziest generations because you guys can't even afford to pay rent. Have you crunched the numbers? Have you looked at any sociological models? Our generation works more hours than any other generation that has lived previously, and we get compensated the least amount since the Gilded Age. Our generation is getting reamed from mouth the asshole. It's ridiculous. But then they don't look at the actual real statistical reality of the situation. They just see, oh, you guys can't afford the thing that I could afford when I was your age. So obviously you need to do better. It's obviously some kind of moral failing on your part. I was able to do it. You should be able to do it. It's survivor bias.
For some reason, they can't figure out why They graduated from high school in 1978, went out the door, got a job, got married the next year, went on to buy a house and have 4 kids off this high school education and afford to support a family on that income. And like, why doesn't everybody else just do that? Like, I can't understand. There are millions of 24-year-olds out there. All you got to do is get out of high school, go pound the pavement, go hand out your resume, get yourself a good paying job, raise a family. For the life of me, I can't understand why I was okay. Something else is different here. Like, something definitely happened, but their brains are stuck back then. That's why it's like every generation likes to shit on the next generation. I've tried my best to never be that person. Like, since I was a kid, I realized that you read back, from people in ancient times saying kids these days have no respect. No, kids are kids. Like, you were the same way too. Fuck off. And I've always tried not to do that, but I can't imagine being that blind to just like actual facts and reason that it's like, oh, okay, those people aren't radically different than I am. Something definitely changed to affect this. And what you said about wealth too, this is kind of the poison pill. I am of the opinion that Donald Trump is slowly is the wrong word now, is quickly destroying the Republican Party, and I love it. Like, I do. Like, he is tanking the GOP. He's destroying evangelical Christianity, like stuff that we've worked for years. Like, Donald Trump is getting it done in less than a decade. So hats off to the Donald for that. But
the history's greatest psyop. He's taking down the Republican Party.
So do you remember back in 2015? It's the just world fallacy. It is the cognitive bias that assumes that actions always yield fair and just consequences. It's true. I just don't know how anybody can believe that. Like, I don't know how anyone is that childlike and naive to believe that. And the reason I brought up Trump was because, actually, I'll go back to the wealth thing later. But do you remember in 2015 when people were saying that, like, before Trump actually caught fire, when he was just some random guy in the field and all the Republicans were shitting on him, calling him a clown, calling him stupid, calling him a moron.
He came down the golden escalators like the clown he is.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of Republicans were saying, hey, listen, because Trump was always like Democrat adjacent, you wouldn't call him like an active member of the Democratic Party, but he was never this hardcore.
He's just a wealthy elite. He has no political allegiance.
Exactly. Yeah. He said that actually too. He's like, I donated to both parties and everything. Like, whoever would, grease my palms, I was in. So a lot of them would say, I think Donald Trump is a plant by the Democratic Party to destroy the Republicans. All of them were saying that in 2015. Now they all love him. Ironically, they're kind of right. Like, I don't think he was a plant, but the result has been the same. Like, he's actually taking the party down quicker than any of us ever could. And the wealth thing, this is also why Trump won, because Trump, if your whole life is built on, like what Evan mentioned, this just world fallacy, that sure, some people get screwed over. It's not fair for everybody, but as a general rule, if you work hard, you follow the rules, you're going to be all right. You're going to be fine. You may not be rich, you may not be wealthy, but you'll be well off. You'll be comfortable. You'll take care of yourself as long as you follow the rules. Then, once again, you follow all the rules and you do really well, you get rich. So if someone is richer than you, they are better than you. Like, that's the entire philosophy right there. Yep. Donald Trump is the richest person on that stage. Why wouldn't you vote for the best person when you are, these 15 people, sure, they're a bunch of egghead politicians. Donald Trump, he worked his way into all this money. Now, forget about how he was born with a ton of it. Yeah, well, forget about that. But I mean, like, it makes perfect sense that they would gravitate towards someone like Trump or Elon Musk because they're rich, so they must be doing it right.
Yeah, that's essentially what it boils down to. It's modern day monarchism is really what it is. It
is. And a lot of them actually say it like that. Like, oh yeah, like we would love if Trump was like. It's so weird too. Can you imagine literally any politician in the last, like, in American history, 240 years, whatever, saying, I'll be a dictator for a day. Like, anybody saying that and not being evaporated off the political scene. But Trump says it and no problem at all. Nothing. Just as many fans as the day before.
Oh, he said it as a joke. I don't know why you're taking it so seriously. It was a joke.
Yeah. Hilarious.
It was a joke.
Absolutely, it's a side-splitting shit from the Donald. So yeah, that's always been fascinating.
You liberals, you take everything so seriously.
Oh, all right, put it right there. So speaking of Donald Trump, I wanted to go over something too. I didn't mean to go over Trump that early, but with Donald Trump's his court cases, like. I've been saying for a long time, and a lot of people have been disagreeing with me ever since I started saying this last summer, that I don't think Trump can win. I don't. I haven't thought it in a very long time. And I get that Biden's unpopular. I get that he's alienated a significant portion of his base. I get that he's 500 years old. And I get that he's not a great comedian. Honestly, like a whole bunch of strikes against him, outside of being the incumbent. That's a pretty big one. The rest of them are pretty, but he's running against Donald Trump. Let's think he's running against Donald Trump, and he's running against a Republican Party that overturned Roe v. Wade. And I can't imagine it. Like I've been of the opinion that Donald Trump won in 2016. That was a fluke. Like I will, to my dying day, I will say that was a fluke, because he ran against Hillary. I think if he ran against Biden in 2016, Biden would have crushed him. Yeah. And so
and Bernie would have swept the fucking floor with him.
Absolutely.
No, the only reason Trump ran in 2016 was because of 3 states that Hillary did not campaign in at all.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. It was Michigan, Minnesota, and Ohio. Pennsylvania. That's right.
Biden would have definitely won Pennsylvania. If anybody, he would have definitely won that. Yeah, it's true. So he won by tiny margins in 3 states against, honestly, the worst candidate the Democrats could have picked. So it tricked a lot of us, myself included. It tricked a lot of us into thinking that Trump was more popular than he actually was. And because Donald Trump supporter are the wildest, loudest fans or whatever. Oh yeah, it was Wisconsin. Okay, Wisconsin. Did you say Minnesota?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Wisconsin. But the loudest, most rabid fans imaginable. Like they wear fucking hats and T-shirts and flags and I have never seen anything like it. Like even back in the most enthusiastic Obama days, I never saw them act the way Trump supporters act. But I've always said that was a fluke. And he lost in the Republicans lost 2018. They lost in 2020. They had the worst performance of any out of power party in 100 years in 2022. Democrats overperformed in polls nationwide in 2022 elections and the 2023 off-year elections by an average of 8 or 9 points. So the best indication of future behavior is past behavior. I just don't see it going well for Republicans. And another reason for this is American people are not the brightest. I'll be the first to admit that. But the fact that this guy is going to be on trial, on criminal charges for the entire year, I'm sorry, that doesn't look good. That's not going to help you out. The American people are not going to be like, yeah, we definitely need to elect that guy. Yeah, the Republicans, sure, they'll cream their pants every time they see it, but your normie American voter is going to be a big fan of that. And I saw this video. This is actually from last week. I missed it. I didn't see it till this morning, but I wanted to share it because Trump is so great, man. He's so great. I don't know if you saw this. It's Trump complaining about the judge in the trial. Let's see. In the Stormy Daniels trial.
Informed that another corrupt New York judge, Juan Merchan, gagged me. That's gagged like you can't talk. But he gagged me with respect to a case that everyone, including the DA, felt should never have been brought. Plenty of people have gagged me recently because when I talk to New York, I explain to the people and they understand these cases are all rigged. It sounds fair, doesn't it, to be gagged, but it's not. It virtually never happens. It only happens to me because I'm able to tell people what's happening, and those people get extremely angry with what's happening. This judge should be recused, and the case should be thrown out. He's totally conflicted. There's never been a judge more conflicted than this one. There has virtually never been anything like it. Thank you very much.
Classic Trump.
It's a classic Trump. I want to go after Trump. It's so common at this point that it's almost not worth bringing up, but his obsessive use of superlatives, he cannot stop. this is the worst thing that has ever happened. This is the most corrupt person ever. No one has been treated. It's like, man, like, how do you keep doing this? And it's Trump, so we're all used to it by now. But I don't know how you can keep saying this, that no one has ever been treated more fairly than me. Like, that just cracks me up. I love his use of superlatives.
I've been treated so badly. I've done nothing wrong. This judge is the worst judge to ever exist.
I did everything right, and they indicted me. And then of course, to what you mentioned, this is actually the most important part. Now, listen, I ain't no fancy big city lawyer, but I think that attacking the judge in your court case may be the worst thing you could possibly do. Yeah. And he always does it. He always does it. And he does it not only does it in court cases that involve him directly, which is like, once again, the last person on earth you want to talk shit about is the judge in your trial. But he does it to like court cases he loses. Like he brought forth 60 court cases for the 2020 election saying that there was voter fraud. Well, it's funny because like when they never actually said there was voter fraud in those trials, which is interesting. Like when Rudy Giuliani would go up there, he never claimed there was voter fraud. They would always dance around the actual terms so they wouldn't commit perjury. They would say, we're worried about these irregularities. Like that's what they would say and everything like that. Trump lost, I think it was 59 out of 60 or 60 out of 61 of those cases. The only case he won was that there was some state where it required that like watchers, the people that watch the polls, had to be 20 feet away from the tables. And Trump argued it should be 10. And he got that, like a minor thing that didn't matter at all and anything. But all those judges were corrupt. All like, like 6 judges over these cases. Every last one of them, some of them he appointed was corrupt. Every judge that is assigned to cover the trial is corrupt. It's like, I get why Trump would say something like that, but look, if you're a Trump supporter, you don't believe that. There's no way you believe every time he goes to court, he happens to be assigned to a corrupt judge. There's no chance.
Yeah, it's honestly just laughable. There's so many trials; it's hard to keep track.
It is.
This one's the hush money one, right?
Yeah, this is the hush, the least important one, honestly. The one I care the least
Same
about.
Here. Same here. I'm waiting to see either the classified document case or the big kahuna. Did this guy commit straight up treason against America? That's the one I want to see before the elections actually happen. Unfortunately, we're probably not going to get that because of the way the time frame is. But still, just even these little civil trials are enough to really tarnish him in the polls. And I think that we probably mentioned this in a past episode, but I feel like the polls, even at this point in the game, Biden is going to improve.
Yep.
Trump has nowhere to go but down.
Yep.
Trump is at his ceiling. People that like Trump are in for Trump, and he's not gaining anybody else.
Nope.
All he can do at this point is solidify that base and hopes that he gets very key districts, just like he won in 2016. Because there's no way in hell he's getting the majority of the vote.
No, it's true. Trump is in a difficult situation here because not only is he going to look worse and worse with the trials and everything, he's also going to open his fucking mouth. And people forget Trump was not a popular president. He never hit 50% in popularity with the American public. And what was I going to say? Also, Trump's voting base is literally dying. Like literally, there will be fewer Trump supporters alive in November than now. Like 6 months from now, a lot of them are going to die. Which I mean, it's probably not going to be to the amount that it's going to be major, but it doesn't help Trump. It doesn't help him. And there's people who there are like a lot of times I say this a lot when we're talking about politics is that a lot of times we fall into the trap of getting into our bubble and assuming that people think like us, like people who are really politically active or people who are content creators or stuff like people who are, involved in local politics or stuff like that. People don't think like us. They don't. I wish they did. Trust me, I wish they did, but they do not. People pay attention to politics every now and again. It's like, oh, hey, it's it's August. I should see who's running. It's like that's how your average American is, and they're not going to vote even on the issues that seem like massive ones to us. So, like the example I talk about this is Palestine. And like, so I run across people who will say that, I'm not going to vote for Biden because of his stance in Palestine. Hey, get it. I mean, if your line in the sand is, I'm not going to support a candidate who's funding a genocide, more power to you. Like, I don't begrudge anyone having that position. But, and this is showing up with a lot of people who showed up with the uncommitted votes in Minnesota or New York, places like that. And yeah, that doesn't help Biden. That certainly does bring him down a little bit. But I think we get carried away with those thoughts here because listen, the amount of people who are going to vote, like their primary issue is Palestine, is going to fucking pale in comparison to the abortion. Like 10-1 easily. And like your average normies who don't even know what's going on. They're like, oh yeah, I saw something in the news about some place called Gaza. Like you're some rube who's not paying attention to this. Like he's gonna read the paper and say, oh my God, my state lost the right to abortion. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and they'll go out and vote for that shit. So yeah, that's what's gonna drive voters. And so your average person is gonna be the one who swings elections, not your political ideologues. And your average person, given a choice between Trump and Biden, that probably don't like either, they're going to go Biden. Your average normal person is going to go with Biden. And the polls, I hate to be a don't believe the polls guy because these people always bug me. I grew up always being upset because I used to be a conservative many, many years ago. And a lot of times I'd hear like Rush Limbaugh or something like, oh, don't believe the polls. I know that John McCain is losing to Obama in the polls, but the polls are bullshit. The polls are media control narratives. Now, I'm not saying that the polls are deliberately false, but I am saying that polls over the years have become less and less reliable. I've realized over time for a lot of pretty obvious reasons. First is like they're relying on calling people's phones and you answering an unknown number or something like that, which, I mean, only the most psychotic people in the country, the only people who are answering some unknown number. And also it's, that's the other one I was going, oh yeah, older people are going to be more likely to answer this stuff. And people who like Trump, you alluded to this, cannot wait to tell you how much they love Trump. They see a poll like, hey, you vote for Trump? Hell yes, I'm doing it. You don't have that kind of enthusiasm for honestly any politician, but you don't have that. You certainly don't have it for Joe fucking Biden. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that right there.
Yeah. So just like I said I would, I remember what that video game was. It was Cyberpunk.
Oh, Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Libertarians basically just want a cyberpunk reality.
They do. You ever hear that right wingers want a Star Wars reality and left wingers want a Star Trek reality? I always thought that was a great comparison.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
that's exactly what they want. And so, third and most importantly about that video, how many times did he say the word gagged? How many times? He must have. That was like a 2-minute video, maybe. He said gagged like half a dozen times.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I think he's kind of into being gagged.
Yeah.
That's my.
And the judge, such a terrible man, he ordered me to wear a ball gag.
He actually said it sounds. He said like it sounds fun. It sounds good to be gagged, but it's not. I was like, no. What? Hold on, let me play it again. I can't. He actually said that. Let me see. It's like halfway through. Hold on. It's worth hearing again. Hold on. And we're gonna count. I want to count the gags too.
Informed that another corrupt New York judge, Juan Mershon, gagged me. That's gagged like you can't talk. But he gagged me with respect to a case that everyone, including the DA, felt should never have been brought. Plenty of people have gagged me recently because when I talk in New York, I explain to the people and they understand these cases are all rigged. It sounds fair, doesn't it, to be gagged, but it's not. It virtually never happens. It only happens to me because I'm able to tell people what's happening, and those people get extremely angry with what's happening. This judge should be recused, and the case should be thrown out. He's totally conflicted. There's never been a judge more conflicted than this one. There has virtually never been anything like it. Thank you.
All right.
I got 5.
I got 5. I was one off from half a dozen. 5 times he mentioned being gagged. He said, it sounds fair to be gagged, but it's not. It's not fair at all. Plenty of. Go ahead.
In what context does being gagged sound fair?
Yes. It's like, yeah, who does he think should be gagged? Like, why is he think? Yeah, I don't see a problem with this. It's like the only way being gagged sounds fair is like it's a consenting act that you're doing with another person, or you did something wrong and people need you to shut the fuck up. Like that's the only way it sounds fair. And he said, many people have gagged me many times. So okay, now I know. This is just something you're into, and this is like your. It's kind of like so Wonder Woman. And in the Wonder Woman comics, or whatever, the way to take away Wonder Woman's powers is to like tie her hands together. Yeah. If you tie her hands together, she loses her powers, and that's because the guy who created Wonder Woman was like hardcore into BDSM. Like he was really into that shit, and so he had a wife and like a girlfriend. They lived together, and he had all this shit. So yeah, he slipped in his kink into the Wonder Woman comics, and I think Trump is slipping in his kink into his statements lambasting the judge. I thought that was some pretty funny shit.
Well, it's really funny that we're talking about a hush money case.
Oh, true. And also, like you mentioned this too, this is the case I give the least fucks about. I mean, it's because I thought originally, like when this first came up, God, what, 2 years ago? It was a long time ago when this case came up, 2 or 3 years ago. Trump made, no, it was before that. No, Trump was president when it came up. Yeah,
2016.
My God.
He used 2016 campaign funds to cover up marital infidelities.
Yeah, and so I thought that was the issue about the campaign funds, and it turns out it's more than that. It's because, well, I guess it's the same thing. He pretended it was a business expense from his organization.
Yep.
And that's why Michael Cohen went to jail, because he knew it was false anyway. So he definitely did it, and we all kind of know he did, which makes it funny, like his performative outrage and shit. Because look, if Trump's found guilty of this, who gives a fuck? Who cares? Like, no, he's not going to lose any support. And honestly, it's like, of all the things Trump's done, it's pretty minor. And if I'm blanking on the fourth case, you have the New York case with what's her name? Stormy Daniels.
Oh, are you talking about? It was the rape case.
Oh, that one's already over. That's right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that one's already over. Yeah, that's true. My God, like, what's wrong with this fucking country, man?
The fact those words just came out of my mouth.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, the rape case, that one with Donald Trump. That's just, it is. Oh, it's such wild shit. And he got like his bond was that. Oh, this is so funny too when they're talking about Trump, is that he keeps mentioning this 2-tiered system of justice. Like, it's so unfair. That's like, all right, you're half right. There is a 2-tier system of justice, and you're definitely on the top tier. Can you imagine any like random person having these same 4 charges? They would be underneath the prison today.
Oh, yeah.
And Donald Trump is there bitching that he has to face moderate consequences for the first time in his life. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, newsflash, Donald Trump's a big crybaby bitch.
I know, right? Which is so funny that he's viewed as this like alpha dom type of guy, like by guys who are 1,000 times more masculine than Donald Trump. Like, for all their flaws, they aren't going around wearing makeup or high heels or girdles or starting fights with daytime TV hosts and shit. like the least masculine shit you could possibly. They're not 70 years old with like bright blonde hair. Like, come on, man. We know what's going on here. And Donald Trump is a child. He is a child. And the fact that anyone sees him as masculine, it is like, it speaks to the insecurities that you mentioned earlier, that they're deeply insecure. And the only masculine traits that Donald Trump embodies are the toxic ones. He's a bully. Like that's it. Like that's the only thing that you could possibly say that's masculine about him.
Donald Trump is definitely the king of crybullying.
He is. And I don't get it, because, like, listen, I was raised to be, like your standard masculine guy with a lot of problematic views about men and women, honestly. And I still have a lot of them. I'm working on them and everything. But I couldn't imagine I couldn't imagine fucking whining as much as Donald Trump. I couldn't. Like, I would be embarrassed. I couldn't look my friends in the eye if every time I was on TV, I was like, I'm being treated so unfairly. Everyone is being mean to me. Like, how could they do this to me? I remember when he was debating Hillary Clinton and the moderator said something that, well, you need to answer Secretary Clinton's question. He goes, oh, 2-on-1. I see how it is. Like, you fucking baby. Like, you're running for president of the United States. Stop bitching, man. And grown-ass men are like, oh, yeah, that's a real man right there. That's the guy I could follow into hell with a can of gas. Like, it's just nonsense, man. It's so weird. Let me see. All right. Speaking of men and toxic masculinity, I got a video I want to play here. So one thing I wanted to discuss, too, is Christian nationalism. And then Christian nationalism is something that I was like kind of raised in a Christian nationalist cult as a kid and broke out of it. And I remember hearing a lot about how people really weren't happy with the way women voted. They really weren't. Did you see the video I sent about this?
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm going to pull up this video for you folks. Now, this is a guy named Joel Weber, I believe his name is Joel Weber, and he is a pastor in Texas. And he's at this event for, Christian for pastors. And the interviewer asked him, hey, listen, if we got to live in your like Christian nationalist society that you want, would women have the right to vote? And you got to hear this guy's answer.
Wave your Christian nationalist wand. We wake up tomorrow in a Christian nation, a Christian nationalist nation as you're describing. All right? There's a lot of fears that people have. Here's one of them. Will women have the right to vote tomorrow if you wave that magic Christian wand?
No.
Okay, why not? I want to get into why not. Yeah, that's great.
No. Because if we had a Christian nation tomorrow and women did have the right to vote, we would not have a Christian nation within 50 years.
Okay, elaborate a little bit on that.
Because the husband has been appointed by God as the head of his home.
Say what?
I said that's incredibly masked off.
You know what? I respect the honesty. I do. I gotta tell you, they're not hiding behind euphemisms.
Okay, elaborate a little bit on that.
Because the husband has been appointed by God as the head of his home. And no-fault divorce and women's suffrage, more than anything else.
For any conservatives watching, suffrage means the right to vote, just so you guys know. I know it's a big word, but I want to clear up. That's what he's talking about, so let's go.
Good catch.
More than anything else, ultimately split the household. So we're not talking about women not having a say in society. We're talking about representative government.
That's right.
Right now, there are people in Williamson County, Texas, where I'm a resident, who represent me. No one gets to represent themselves in every single scenario.
That's right.
We are all represented by somebody else, whether we like it or not. So why not have women and children represented by a man who loves them and is willing to die for them, protects them, and provides for them? I would love to be represented by just one person in civil government who has that level of commitment to me.
That's good.
So it's not about, men get to vote and women don't. And no, it's about the household vote. The individual building block of society, according to the Word of God, is not atomistic individuals. It is the molecule, not the atom, but the molecule of the family.
Yeah.
The family unit should not be separated. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Now, I believe that women's suffrage was just one liberal attempt by people who hated Christ to sever the covenant bond between husband and wife. And that's
Say you can.
All right.
That's a very lengthy way to say this guy wants to continue abusing his wife.
Of course, yeah. Of course. We got a comment here. The funny thing is that women's suffrage happened in the first place because women were seen as more moral, and that is how we got prohibition. This guy is an ignorant dipshit. Women played a huge part in the. It's funny. It's interesting looking back because we when looking back from 100 years later, we can see how prohibition was the obvious wrong answer. Like, it just created a black market for alcohol, something that people were going to drink anyway. Like I hate alcohol. I can't stand the smell. I can't stand the taste. It's not, and I'm too old for being drunk to be worth the hangover now. So I don't drink at all anymore. But a lot of people love it. A lot of people love it. There's no universe in which you're stopping millions of Americans from drinking. And so, yeah, they help, honestly strengthen organized crime. We see how that was a mistake. But looking back through the eyes of a woman living in the early 1900s, when your existence was being essentially an indentured servant to the man you're married to, having to raise his kids, do his laundry, cook for him, clean his house, wash his dishes, and he gets drunk every night and beats the shit out of you. It's like, okay, I can see why the temperance movement grew from the women for that time. I do understand. But you were saying how it's mask off. What do you think the point of this is? Because this kind of falls into the same category. Like, this is actually more extreme even than the abortion stuff. Like, there's no chance that you're going to get a world in which women don't vote. Why bother going so hard for this? I don't get it.
I think it goes right back to what we were talking about earlier. It's just radicalization. That's really the heart of it. And by mask off, he's just saying the quiet part out loud. He's just straight up saying, like, we need to basically unify and collectivize household. That, yes, the Bible says that the man is the head of the household, but it's not solely for him to control. It's essentially a collectivist ideology that they're trying to front. Yeah, oddly enough, a collectivist ideology they're trying to front, which is just a flowery way for them to say, I think that America should be dictated and decided by Christian homes, and according to the Bible, the head of that home should be the man. It's just a roundabout way of them controlling women and instituting more traditional and more extreme policies. Because they know as soon as they gut out the majority of Democratic support, which is overwhelmingly women, statistically women typically vote Democrat, they lose a bunch of their power.
They do, and it's just like, it's funny how conservatives like to talk about how facts don't care about your feelings, because they live in, like, first of all, their understanding of, like, facts is tangential at best. Like, it's tenuous. Like, they can barely grasp on anything. But the facts that they do know, it's not a world that can possibly exist. You can't do it. Like, you can keep complaining about it, and the more you keep pushing from this stuff, it's actually more counterproductive to you. And I just thought of something else. Well, first I want to mention the guy asking the question is like, listen, a lot of people are fearful of this Christian nationalism that you're pushing, and we want to see if you can try to address some of those fears. And he goes on to validate those fears 100%. Like, yeah, you should be scared, it turns out. And I did get a kick out of him saying that, well, the family unit is it's not atomistic, it is molecular. It's like, bro, the Bible, that, like, they didn't know shit about atoms or molecules in the Bible. What the fuck are you talking about here, man? And
don't you just love when an extreme Christian's like, oh, I'm going to inject science into this?
I'm trying to do this without interrupting the video. Hold on, I'm sorry if it does.
Morning.
I did shit. Okay, so there's something I wanted to find in this video, but god damn it, I'm such a fucking amateur. But so there was a what was it? I remember back when I was arguing with these guys in college who believed that, Adam and Eve were real people, and that the flood happened and everything. And there was this scientific article that came out talking about mitochondrial Eve, and they said, aha, see, Eve does exist. We told you. We told you that human beings descended from one woman, and now the scientists finally agree. I was like, okay, look, first off, like, there's not one mitochondrial Eve. There's like 8 of them. Okay, there's lots of Eves out there that we trace ourselves back to. And second, I really can't stand it when, like, these biblical literalists take one thing that scientists say that if you squint, if you kind of look around, kind of seems like what the Bible says, and ignore everything else. Just ignore the rest of the study that got them there and say, yeah, I know, this I told you all this time, it really got me. But the thing I just thought of is when you talked about how Republicans have been, or conservative pushing for this is, I found a video that I made. I was trying to cut myself out of it because I don't want to seem like too much of a braggart here, but I put together a compilation of, I haven't shown you this, of Republicans over the years talking about how they don't want women voting. Let's see if I can share it here. All right.
Position is women should not have the right to vote.
Good.
Oh yeah,
It's
start
very
off with Ann
popular on
Coulter.
college campuses.
Yeah, I mean, we'll lose the odd N as collateral damage, but
No, we can still write books.
you just can't vote.
Exactly.
And so they have recreated this history that, oh God, it was all just sexism, and we didn't have the right to vote until Susan B. Anthony and the women's suffrage movement. And I will defend life before suffrage, because a vote used to represent the family. When we were a culture that really valued family and really understood the natural order that God intended, man serving God, woman following man who serves God, man and woman developing and nurturing children. You only needed one vote per household.
And in regards to women voting, that was the worst
And
thing
the
that
man
ever
made
happened
that
to
sole
America
decision.
too.
Say what?
And the man would make that sole decision, but it's for the family.
Of course,
it's
yeah.
about the family. It's
Yeah.
definitely not fascist doublespeak.
No. Why? Trust me, I have your best interest in mind. So,
I
Ever
speak
happened
for
to
all of
America
us.
too. Look at us now. Women overwhelmingly vote on their emotions. And their emotions, and the liberals are very good at appealing to emotions. Oh, look at these migrant children. They have nowhere to go. Look at this pregnant migrant woman. She has nowhere to go. We have got to open up our borders and give her cash assistance for the rest of her life here in America. And women vote for that. They vote to have weapons taken away, our Second Amendment rights taken away. Women used to vote, they used to not vote because their husband would make the choice for them. Now, if just our husbands and landowners were voting, we'd be in a much better place.
all right. So, Lauren Witzke, I don't know if you're familiar with Lauren Witzke,
No.
but she's a Nazi. I mean, if you couldn't.
I kind of deduced that just from this small clip.
Yeah. Like, you can dig more into her. It does not get better. It doesn't. What you find doesn't get with Lauren Witzke, but she has the most vile opinions I've ever seen, and that is for an American. That's saying a lot. She was the actual Republican nominee for the Senate in Delaware.
Yeah.
She got crushed, but Delaware is not even like a super radical conservative state. Like, that's supposed to be a normalish state. And that's just how far Republicans have fallen. But let's keep going here.
Did she go as far as like the JQ?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
all
so
the
just
time.
straight up Nazi. Okay.
All the time. Oh yeah.
Love
we
it.
are now.
And we have a problem demographically. Single women are voting for Democrats by 30 points.
37.
37 points.
Yeah.
And the fact that these youth voters are coming in so strong on an off
Stay
year
mad.
is very concerning. It looks like they've been brainwashed. This new generation is totally brainwashed because a lot of these single women who vote 37 spreads for Democrats are teaching all of our younger generation in these schools, and they're polluting their minds, and then they grow up, and then they're in their 20s, and then they vote for leftists.
That's a pretty handsome guy right there. You guys should probably follow him on YouTube. So I love these compilations, and they're easy to put together. Like, Republicans or conservatives in general don't hide this shit. They have such fucking disdain for women, man. Like, it's wild how commonplace it is, and how, like you said, how mask off it is. It's mask off, hood on. They are completely on to like the most bigoted misogyny and racism and anti-Semitism possible. And I really don't know if, because like I don't know if you still use Twitter at all.
I never used it to begin with.
Okay, all right.
I think you mean X.
Oh, I'm sorry, X. Yeah, but there's so much of this on there now where it's just like it's not hiding it anymore. Like it'll show like a map of Africa, and it's like, do we really need this place? I mean, just like this stuff is just like it's just the worst shit imaginable. And
Oh my
these
God.
these people have always existed, of course, but they're just louder now because the Republican Party has gotten so far to the right that to get any attention, you need to start saying shit like that. And I don't know if like their numbers are growing. Like I can't imagine it's still like a massive part of the population that have these thoughts, but I get really weirded out by how comfortable they are saying this shit out loud.
They're a very vocal minority. And a lot of that is because Elon Musk in the past couple of years has come out and said, oh, yes, here, Nazi, have a microphone. This is free speech.
Yeah. Yeah. Elon Musk has had a big part in that. I remember there was this one thing that came up where this guy, he posted a tweet talking about, it was something about like a Jewish synagogue or something. And like, he was like, I'm just asking questions about this and everything. And Elon Musk is like, hey, it's important that we can do that. Be like, what the fuck, man? Like, well, what the fuck? I've just grown tired of, I would much rather, honestly, people would do what, Pastor Weber or Jason Whitlock or Ann Coulter or Lauren Witzke, like what they were saying is like, listen, I don't think women should vote. Yeah, it's fucked up. It's bigoted. It's wrong. But I respect the fact that you're actually saying what you believe. I would much rather deal with someone like that than someone who is like, hiding behind these euphemisms and stuff because it's cowardly. And I don't know. I think it's easier to which one I prefer. I would rather like the racist and the bigot who says it out loud than the one who hides it. But it is weird being around so many who don't hide it. It is kind of weird.
Yeah. It's really hard to say. It's definitely more sinister, the fascists that try and cover it up. But at the same time, it is quite terrifying that such a large public figure like that would just come out and say, like, oh, yeah, no, if I had it my way, women just wouldn't vote. Just suffrage and no-fault divorce, that's the problem with America. Women trying to get out of their abusive relationships, that's the problem.
What's really funny about that to me is they all want to revert back to like this 1940 style of America. They're like, things were just so much better back then. And the weird thing is that they're partially correct. In a lot of ways, life, we talked about it before, life was better for white people back then. Life was like, you could get a high school education, get yourself a decent job, support a family on one income. You had, brand new government programs like suburbs, which were essentially subsidized housing, which is really funny because like they love to shit on people who live in subsidized housing city. Suburbs would have never existed without government intervention and backing the guaranteeing the investment people who built those houses. Government investments like Medicare, Social Security, the GI Bill, so soldiers could go to school, which is like most of the men in the country, by the way, can end up going to college stuff. All this free shit from the government they got. And we had super high union membership, like 30% or something back then. And we had a 90% top marginal tax rate on the highest earners. Yeah, if that's what you meant by let's go back to the 40s and 50s, I'm all in. Let's do it. Like, but no, that's not what they want. No, they want to go back to the days when, women couldn't get a bank account, and certain folk knew their place and knew better than to complain because they would get what's coming to them. And like, they just want to go back to the bigotry. It's like, I got to do this for you. That's not what made the country profitable.
Yeah,
it's not, but they seem to believe it is.
If we're just taking the economic prosperity, yeah, give me that all day. The social stuff, maybe the social stuff can stay in the past. I think we made quite a bit of progress in the social aspect of the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no.
What I was saying is like, it's just such a fucking fantasy that I don't know what the end goal is here. Like, I really don't. I really don't. Because like we were talking about how the Republican base is literally dying. It's getting smaller and smaller every single election. And to combat this, what do they do? Say, okay, so the population is becoming, the white population is shrinking. We're getting more immigrants, more minorities. Women are becoming more politically active. Young people are turning 18 and starting to vote. So what's our battle plan? We're going to shit on every one of those groups. We're going to talk as much smack about them as we possibly can. We're going to say that Black people are bitching and complaining too much, that, Latinos are stealing all the jobs, that, women are slutting themselves out and getting abortions, and young people are lazy. And it's like, what is your battle plan here? Like, what is your goal? Like, if you just keep shitting on people, no wonder they're not voting for you. And they keep doing it. And it's like they seem, that's why I keep getting confused into what's going on. Because like in the Supreme Court, for example, I didn't think the Supreme Court would overturn Roe v. Wade because it didn't make political sense, but I failed to realize like how many true believers were on the Supreme Court. But they can get away with that. Like, what do they care now? They have that job forever. It's never going to hurt them. But for Republican politicians who need votes, who need to get elected, just saying, yeah, I'm going to just disregard the majority of the population. I don't know how you plan on winning this.
Yeah, I honestly, their end game is probably just the Handmaid's Tale. That's just what they're aiming for. At this point, they know how unpopular they are. They're just trying to solidify their core base, because it may not be the majority of the electorate, obviously, but it's a decent chunk, 20-25% of America. And Godwin's law, not supposed to talk about Nazis. The Nazis were not a popular party either. They only won 20% of the vote. Hitler didn't even get to his power through being elected. He was appointed through the chancellor. So that's essentially the course that I see the American Republican Party going in, is like they're trying to consolidate their core. They're trying to have more local on the ground support, so that when shit does hit the fan, they have their people in place to take effect. Because as far as the traditional, we're going to take this over the democratic way, we're going to enact policies to help people. At this point, if you look at the 2025 project, they're just blatantly saying, we're not doing that anymore. We're just doing the fascism. We're just taking control, gutting the executive branch, and turning the president into the totalitarian leader of America. That's their end game. So it's really up to us to make sure that not only is Biden winning, but we make sure that our local Democrats are also winning, and that those Democrats are breaking up militia groups. Because even here, I stay in the Portland area. There was a news story like a week or two ago of just straight up like neo-Nazis assaulting people in Portland during a rally, and then the news framing one of the left-wing people that were defending themselves as a Nazi, and there's even a whole defamation case about that. Like you might think, oh, it's a blue area. This is a left-wing area. It's not going to happen in places like that. Yes, these people are becoming emboldened. They're becoming extreme, and it is up to us to stop them before they enact control.
Yeah, that's I like that advice too. Is that we really need to pay a lot more attention to the elections that aren't quite as sexy, the ones that don't get like the nationals. Like your local elections are infinitely more important than your national elections. Like the people who do like the groundwork at your school board, your aldermans, your city council, stuff like that. Those people can do a lot of good. And if there's enough of them, this is actually, we've been shitting on Republicans this entire time here, but credit where credit's due. They put in the fucking work. They did. They started decades ago, right after Brown versus Board of Education. Honestly, they'd be like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" And they were throwing the radicals on school boards, throwing the radicals on city councils, and slowly but surely gain this base up. I think that we miss the forest from the trees a lot of times. It's really important that Bernie Sanders wins. It's like, even if Sanders would have won, it's not like he could change the country from the presidency. You right me, and then the way we want, it's got to happen at a local level. And that's what socialism is all about. It's actually, by the way, like for all you socialists out there, it's real easy to do this shit right here. It's easy to sit in front of a microphone and talk about and pontificate about how much better we are than everybody and how much smarter we are. But how much smarter we are and everything. That's easy to do. That doesn't take any dedication. No, you know what's hard? Going out and talking to your neighbor. Like that's what you're not doing. Like, it's easy to sit online and roast some idiot Republican and tear him a new one. But getting involved in trying to establish unions in your local community, or food bank, like anything that actually involves bringing a society together, we're sorely lacking on that. Like we aren't doing nearly enough on that. And if you listen to anything I say, folks, do definitely do something like that.
Yeah, and the conservatives have the advantage. They're the ones with the churches,
the church,
with these community groups. That's how a lot of these people get into power. Is you have a local election where only 20 people give a shit about the election, and 15 of those people happen to be the candidates' church members.
Yep.
So many local elections have turned into that.
John and I were talking. We talked about this several times about how. Well, first, it's unfortunate. Like I don't go to church. I don't give a shit about it like that. But it is. I do think it's unfortunate that the right has subsumed these certain parts of American culture, like church, like the American flag, the iconography, just like stuff that actually binds people together on a subconscious level. Is not real, but it at the same time it is. Like it's actually effective, and there's no like equal secular substitute for that. At least not one that I've seen. Like I can't find anything that good. So they do have an advantage there, but that doesn't mean we stop doing the work. It doesn't. And this is something too. I was like, the way you present yourself is so important. And this is, man, it's hard to say because on the one hand, we know that there are a lot of unfair stereotypes given to people based upon their appearance alone. And that is wrong. And it's not right. We know that. However, we also live in reality with politics and stuff. So Antifa going out dressed in all black head to toe. I'm sorry. You look like a bad guy. You do. I hate to say it like you. Hey, if I just saw a group of people and one person is just wearing regular shit, maybe an American flag or something, and the other person looks like a ninja. All right, I think the ninja is probably the one that's I should be worried about. And so, yeah, we have to really work on, our presentation and our affectation because it means a lot. Like I get the reality of the message we want to convey and how we want to change perceptions, but we have to deal with the current perceptions as they are, not as we want them to be.
Man, it's funny you bring that up because it's like if you look at pictures back in like the 1930s and 40s, the American Nazi movement, you would look at their rallies and the Nazi side would be dressed in like these all brown outfits and just look like like uniformed guards almost, like villains, like guarding a villain's secret hideout. And then all the left-wing people, these union members, they would just come in like suits.
Yeah,
they'd just be wearing like suits. Like like normal like sweater vests and just normal everyday people out here like protesting, saying like, look at these group of weirdos.
Yeah, right.
They want to take away your rights. Like why would you ever vote for that? Like they hate your uncle because he came from a different country. Why do you want to support him? And that's really what we need to capitalize on. We need to normalize left-wing politics because one of the biggest issues that we deal with in the modern political scape is the alienation of left-wing ideologies.
Yeah. It's our presentation. It's super important. And knowing don't imagine you're looking at through your eyes. Imagine looking through a normal person's eyes, And also, this is another one that gets me too, is our language. Is that unfortunately a lot of left-wing dialogue is almost necessarily academic. That like you say stuff that you would say in a college classroom or a university just doesn't translate well to your regular person. And that's what I try to do. It's not dumbing down on us. It's just speaking a different language. And if you just start throwing a bunch of theory and shit at people, their eyes are going to glaze over. Like, what is this fucking nerd talking about? Like, talk to people in the way that they want to be spoken to, and you can go far. Like your average person, if you grow up in the United States just under American education system and American propaganda, you're going to be fairly conservative, like your average person. But they're not unreasonable. Like your normal person can be talked out of some nonsense if you just show them how it is without telling them how fucking stupid they are, because they haven't read the same books you have. We really got to work on that.
Yeah, I'm really bad about that.
Yeah, we all are, right? It's the burden, though. It's like how if you ever read about Isaac Newton was a notorious asshole. He was a dick to everyone. But then you gotta think about it. He was Isaac Newton. I mean, he's like
he was literally smarter than everybody.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Exactly. Like it's hard not to be a dick. Like imagine you're Isaac Newton and everyone you've ever met on planet Earth is like a third grader. Like everyone you're talking to, I'd be pissed off all the time too. So like we get it. We get it. You know, you're talking serious enough and this happened. But anyway, that'll wrap it up for tonight's show. Thank you so much for joining me, Roy. I appreciate it, man. Sorry, I left you out in the void there for about 20 minutes there, but I appreciate it. Tell the folks where they can find your work.
We're mostly on YouTube. We're a podcast. We like doing I completely messed that up. Okay, from scratch. We're a podcast on YouTube. We mostly do interview style format. We like talking to people. We do a little bit of true crime, a little bit of politics, a little mixed bag of stuff. But our main thing is talking to people, having discussions, not debates. You can find us there at YouTube, the Voidcast channel. We also have a website, thevoidcast.tv. And we have all the other socials. We got a TikTok with a good amount of followers. We got Instagram. We're on Spotify. Just look up the Voidcast. You should be able to find us. You'll know it if you see us. And I really appreciate you for having me on, TJ. It's been a fun time as always.
Always, man. But hey, I don't know if you saw this, but we got an encore. We got another hour and a half, man. We got to run the whole thing back. Let's go.
No, I'm sorry. My wife's already texted me. She's like, you need to come get this child.
All right, man. Take care. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you later.
Yes, sir.
Bye.